everyone, and sorry for the slight delay while we were figuring out technical challenges. And welcome to our webinar on how AI can accelerate Africa's scientific breakthroughs. We're very excited to be hosting our last webinar of the year. And today's discussion is premised on the understanding that Africa is facing a unique set of complex scientific and developmental challenges. And a lot of the traditional scientific approaches, although they're foundational, are often resource intensive and time consuming. And because AI is claimed to have a lot of power to have a paradigm shift, and because there's kind of a lot of capabilities for pattern detection, prediction, and optimization, it may be uniquely positioned to accelerate scientific discovery in resource-constrained environments. And to have this conversation, I'm going to be leading a panel discussion. My name is Salam Abdullah, and I'm one of the researchers at the Global Center on AI Governance. And we have wonderful panelists that I'm going to introduce after going over the key questions that we are going to be addressing today. Our webinar is going to address a very key question, which is how existing science labs and research networks across Africa can effectively integrate and leverage AI to address scientific challenges, and what the critical problems AI uniquely is placed to solve today. And our discussion is going to move beyond the theoretical kind of conceptions, and we're going to be talking about the practical applications, such as AI's role in drug discovery, in prevalent diseases, and also revolutionizing diagnostics. We're also going to be talking about why African researchers in particular are well positioned to be addressing these issues, because a lot of the conversations about AI and the global race to advance it is revolving around global north agendas and value systems. And our session is going to highlight opportunities and have an honest conversation about the challenges such as data scarcity, and also the push for AI-driven science and the challenges it brings to privacy, especially in terms of kind of sensitive sectors such as healthcare. So we're hoping to identify core scientific problems, showcase practical integration, discuss new challenges, and also promote ecosystem building. So with that said, let me introduce our panelists today. So we first have Professor Jonathan Schock, who is an associate professor in the Department of Mathematics and Applied Mathematics at the University of Cape Town, and an adjunct professor at INRS Montreal, and interim director of UCT AI Initiative, and the co-PI on the African Hub on AI Safety, Peace, and Security. Jonathan comes from a background in theoretical physics, but his research now focuses both on foundational and applied machine learning, including biology, physics, chemistry, psychology, and natural language processing and AI safety. And next, we will have Professor Muliaru Wafula, who is an associate professor in the Department of Computing at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and an adjunct professor of Africa Institute for Capacity Development. He holds multiple degrees, including a PhD in information technology, an MPhil in electronic engineering and semiconductor physics from the University of Cambridge, and is certified by IBM as a mobile application developer, cybersecurity expert, and data engineer. We also have Dr. Shiko Gitao with us today, who is the CEO of Kala, a digital innovation company that catalyzes digital transformation capabilities for organizations across Africa. She has over 10 years of experience in research, design, implementation, and management of digital technologies, and she has established expertise in both African and emerging markets, and specializes in solving problems in agriculture, health, payments, retail, and renewable energies. She is responsible for the setup of Safaricom Alpha, a first of its kind corporate innovation hub in Africa, where she worked as the head of products, innovation, and acted as chief innovation officer. She has received numerous awards in recognition of her efforts in influencing business and government as well as technology. Dr. Shiko sits sits on several boards and ICT companies, and she contributes to a number of steering committees and think tanks on Africa and technology. She holds a PhD and MSc in computer science from the University of Cape Town, South Africa. We also have Dr. Fitzum Athamino Andage with us today, and he is a computer engineer and researcher at Addis Ababa University, where he leads Resonance AI for D Lab and serves as the founding head for the Center of Artificial Intelligence and Robotics. His work focuses on applying responsible and context-aware AI to advance scientific and societal outcomes in health, agriculture, governance, and energy. His earlier research spanned computer architecture, privacy enhanced secure systems, and energy efficient computing. And through his research and graduate supervision, Fitzum champions the role of AI in driving locally grounded innovation and accelerating Africa's scientific potential. Finally, we have Dr. Tariro Makazange, who is a medical social entrepreneur, infectious disease physician, and expert in viral immunology. She earned her MD from Harvard Medical School and her PhD from Oxford University, and her career spans public healthcare in Zimbabwe, global health research between Massachusetts General Hospital and the University of Zimbabwe, as well as clinical development in pharmaceutical industry with first-in-human biologics and late-phase small molecule trials. She has conducted research in viral immunology and vaccine immunogen design, and she's the founder of the CRMG and Matula Trust, where she leads efforts to diversify clinical trials, advance immunogenetics research in African populations, and drive public health innovation. As the CEO of ACRN, she builds Pan-African clinical research ecosystems with her team, which aims to deliver globally competitive, high-quality clinical trials while tracking Africa's most pressing health challenges. She also serves as an assistant clinical professor at Stanford University and a faculty fellow at Stanford Center for Innovation in Global Health. So we are in good company to have our conversation here today. And let's start with Professor Jonathan Schock. If you could start by speaking to the most pressing scientific problems on the continent that remain unsolved today, and in what specific ways AI can be leveraged to bridge this gap.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here today. And I think this is a really important question, and one where I think we have to be thinking sort of in a cross-disciplinary way. The types of problems, I think in some senses we're sort of all aware of the types of problems in terms of drug discovery, in terms of diagnosis, in terms of lack of healthcare workers, in terms of flood risk, in terms of disease within agriculture. The sort of list of problems themselves, I think, is almost well known now. And I think it's the fact that we have to be thinking not only in new ways, so we do need to be thinking about how AI can be used within these various areas. And I can speak to that more in a moment. But I think something which is often overlooked, when people write proposals about, using some new machine learning algorithm to solve these problems, it is a lack of understanding of how it fits in with knowledge systems which already exist. Examples of people trying to build climate models, which I think is an extremely interesting area to do flood risk prediction, when there may actually be a huge amount of sort of indigenous knowledge already embedded within cultures where people, may be able to pick up on environmental cues that aren't embedded, aren't features within the models, within the complex machine learning models. And so to me, it's not just a matter of saying, how can technology solve these problems, but it's really about how can technology hand in hand with knowledge which is already within the communities, how can those go together to solve these problems? And so I'm very happy to sort of talk about the specifics of them, but I think, whenever we talk about these things, we have to be very careful to think what knowledge is already there and what are we just trying to bring in from, with complex mathematical models, which may be powerful, but may be missing something very important. I don't know if I've answered your question there, but yeah.
Oh, yes. I think it's really important to stress that these technologies do not operate without the context in which they are going to be operationalized. And in doing so, also considering the existing efforts and knowledge is always really important. And if you could expand further, and I know this is the area that you would speak most to, but the computational power that can accelerate these breakthroughs. And particularly in areas that you've already mentioned, such as drug and vaccine development and material science, or even environmental modeling, where traditional models may have resource constraint issues, or they may be slow or costly. And how can the computational power that AI offers help bridge that gap?
Sure. So I think the example that I wanted to really focus on was something which is happening here at UCT in H3D, which is the drug discovery unit at the University of Cape Town. So H3D has been running since around 2010. It's headed up by Kelly Jabali, and they focus on drug discovery for malaria, tuberculosis, and antimicrobial resistance. And it's actually the only lab in Africa to have got a drug all the way through the pipeline up to clinical trials, and in fact, phase 2 clinical trials for a malaria drug. The problem with drug discovery is really one of combinatorics. And the reason I say that is because if one is looking at different combinations of atoms that go into even relatively simple molecules, the size of the space that one is searching through is enormous. If you're looking at just very small molecules with sort of relatively simple organic atoms which are related to organic chemistry, you're talking 10 to the 60, one followed by 60 zeros, is the sort of number of molecules that you might need to search through. And of course, even if you've got a great lab with 60 or 70 chemists as they do in H3D, it's just impossible to search through that. In fact, the number of molecules that have actually been characterized within this space is around 10 to the 12, which is a pretty big number, but it's a very small fraction. And so the point is that if you can make predictions about properties of molecules, about their toxicity, about their potency, about the difficulty of being able to synthesize them, then you immediately sort of help with this pipeline that you want to start off with as many molecules as you can within your thought process of what might be a good molecule. And you want to be able to reduce that as quickly as possible. And that's where machine learning really fits in, that people are building models, and you can do things from just very simple predictive models from the molecular structure in whatever feature space you have to a set of predictions about the properties and the likelihood of it being useful for a given disease, all the way up to looking at something like AlphaFold, which actually does the protein folding and sees from a dynamical point of view what's the likelihood of one molecule fitting in and disrupting a process in the disease pipeline. And so H3D has been working with a number of different AI labs around the world to try to speed this up, and it's working very well now. They've got a nice pipeline, and a part of the battle, I can call it a battle, a sort of a part of the challenge is actually taking people who are brilliant scientists and finding the right language whereby AI people can speak to the bench scientists, the chemists, without too much suspicion. It's very easy for people to come along, with AI knowledge and say we can solve your problem for you. And it might be there that they can add knowledge, but it has to be done, with humility and with a real understanding of the problem at hand and how everything fits together. And so I think a lot of the battle actually is in finding that common language, finding the shared way to look at a problem, such that one can work together, be it between AI scientists and bench scientists and local communities, in order to work together. Because again, it might be that you come out with a drug at the other end, but if the community is suspicious in some way because of the way it's come about, you haven't actually solved the problem. So there's a whole pipeline here that as soon as you start talking about AI, it's really vital that you're thinking all the way along the process. How are you going to persuade the people who might not understand this particular aspect of the language, even though they're other scientists, and how might this actually have an impact further down the line? So the types of models that one might use for drug discovery are actually similar sorts of models that one might use for material discovery. And so if you want to do something like carbon capture for climate change, and we know that climate change is likely to have really large impacts in Africa, as weather systems change and drought patterns change. Again, material discovery for carbon capture is another one where that material discovery process, you can use similar sorts of models to those that you use in the drug discovery pipeline. And so UCT is one of, but not the only university in Africa that's looking at these sorts of problems. And what's interesting is that you don't necessarily need massive computational power in order to do this. Of course, the more you have, the more drugs you're able to go through. But even with relatively limited computational power, you can speed up the process of sifting the drugs that are likely to work from those that aren't. And so to me, these are areas where even sort of quite classical data science, machine learning, you don't need to be talking about large language models within this space, although you can bring them in. Quite classic machine learning techniques can actually be incredibly powerful, but novel developments in these architectures are proving very useful. Actually, just to give a statistic, I think it was in 2015, the first drug which came out of a machine learning model went to clinical trials. And last year or 2 years ago, there were 67. And what you see is that there's this real exponential growth in the number of drugs that are getting to clinical trials that have been predicted from these machine learning models. So I think it's a really exciting area. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's really helpful to understand that the same computational models can be used to tackle several of the challenges that we have discussed, and also the work that UCT has been doing thus far. And going from a lab that has been well established to one that has just been formed, the Resonance Lab. Let's go to Dr. Futsuma Mino to talk about the early projects or pilots that you think that your team is starting to explore, especially in areas where AI shows strong potential that Professor Jonathan Shaw has just touched on.
Thank you, Salam. And I appreciate what Jonathan said about how AI could be used for solving problems and how you need to be able to talk to the people that actually do the science in with the language that people can communicate. This was actually something that I want to talk about. So our lab, when we started, like some of like say people in that do AI and like AI kind of research, got together and thought, okay, this is the problem that we need to address. And what we found out is that, say, for example, if I want to work on agriculture, right? So what is the problem that I need to address? I, as a computer engineer or like an AI engineer, I have a certain thought. But what we understood what we found out is like, when you go talk to the people in the field, you understand the problems that you think are the real problems are not the one that needs to be addressed. So that's something that we learned. Because of that, what we did in our lab is that because we have like four teams. One works in agriculture, one that works in health, like governance and justice, and sustainable energy and climate resilience. So what we found out is like we ensured that in each of these teams there is a researcher who is from the field, so a domain expert. So even with the domain experts, what we also understood is that when you actually go to the ground, to the people that actually would probably implement it, what we found out is that they have different problems than that we think there are. So in each of these teams, for example, in agriculture, with a professor in veterinary medicine, we're trying to see if we can use AI and computer vision to improve the productivity of dairy, like cows that could be used for milk production. And one thing that professor told us and that we understood is that depending on the way the cows move, the quality of the milk is affected. If they are sedentary, if they are like, say, are they moving regularly, and is their muscles like in good condition or not. These are the kind of things that we can use AI to look at from, for example, from the barn, and then like, see how we can improve later on. When we came to the healthcare, like I had a discussion with someone that like one of the things, for example, um, um, in early childhood cancer, is that the parents do not know how to take care of the kids, or how they could identify early signs so that their children could get treatment. And for this, like if you have like a bot that you can provide like information that people can communicate with, would help. That is for like telemedicine, right? And now there is one student, even if she's not exactly working on this, but she's going to be working on how this idea could be adopted for maternal health, like providing like information at the right time, so that like the quality of women during pregnancy and after. Um, and So yeah, and like there are like cases like this I can tell you about, but maybe I'll continue later.
Thank you so much, Fatou. And I'm really happy that you were able to expand on the need for community engagement and understanding of sociocultural kind of conditions, particularly in cases of agriculture and healthcare that are often dependent on the context in which you're operating. And going back to the lab, the resonance lab, what did it take to set up an AI lab at Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia, where you're based, and what kind of infrastructural data needs and those kinds of considerations are taken into account when establishing a lab that has ambitions to solve critical issues on the continent and in the country in specific?
Okay, that's a very good question. So what I would say is like, at first start with what you have, right? See the problems, to identify the problems, and then like we used to use like our own laptops for like building models and the like. But what that actually what we noticed was like the rate of students graduating were like slower, because it takes a long time to iterate through the models. But then like at the university, like at our department and our college level, like we got together and we bought like these servers with GPUs. And we noticed that like the rate of students graduating increased significantly, because now they could at least offload their work onto these servers. And these were like, say, servers with one GPU. But then later on, we got a donation of like these AI machines that now not only like our like students in our faculty, but students from all over the university are now using. And like the Resonance Lab came at the right time, because it started just after these donations came into being. So now we're confident with our computational needs are satisfied like for currently. But now let's see. The next problem is like we solved the problem. Now we have the solution, right? And the next question is like, when you want to deploy that solution, the computational needs like the computational resource should be available, right? Now, is it available in country where we can like keep our data sovereignty, or should we have something from like somewhere, right? So that's the next question that we're thinking about. But like for currently for building our models, we think like we are set. But another thing that we needed was like space, where we need to like the lab to be situated, and that was solved because the university was kind enough to give us like one floor of like space to set up the lab.
Thank you so much, Lizum. That really helps with um, not waiting to have all the needs fulfilled and starting with what one has, but also understanding that the needs are ever evolving and that the needs will change and the risks will change according to it as the solutions are deployed in communities and they engage in the environments that they're designed for. So now if we could kind of expand it to a more Pan-African lens and go to Dr. Tariro Makadange, as a leader in an African-led organization dedicated to achieving globally competitive and high-quality clinical trials, how do you see the role of AI in addressing Africa's most prevalent and urgent needs, particularly in healthcare?
Great, thank you. And thank you very much for enabling me to be a part of this discussion. I hope you can hear me clearly. I think AI can be an exciting opportunity for the continent. I think Professor Jonathan talks about drug discovery. But post-drug discovery, you need to generate clinical data. So whether it's safety data or efficacy data. And with that, you also need to have a very good understanding of what the disease burden is, the outcomes pre-existing, and then when you bring in an intervention, what the impact of the intervention is. So for us as ACRN, what we've been thinking a lot about is how do we use technology in general, but AI and large data sets more specifically for this conversation to help Africa increase its contribution to global research and global clinical trials. So very simply, only about 3% of trials take place on the continent. So it means that everyone who looks like me, you, everybody on the continent is taking therapeutics where the good breadth of safety, efficacy data, etc., may not exist. And so clinical trials become a way of generating that critical data. So I think in this age of technology, thinking about how we could accelerate that contribution of the continent in global research and global clinical trials. And here it can take the form of, everything from, early on the ideation protocol development, regulatory submissions. Many of our regulators are trying to strengthen, meet global standards, improve their processing timelines, etc. So can AI, obviously with a human in the loop, help accelerate that and accelerate the regulatory processes on the continent for clinical trial applications. And then in the conduct of trials, thinking about how AI and automated workflows can help to support more efficient delivery of trials. So whether it is direct interaction with patients for trials and participants for trials, all the way through to data management workflows, speeding up the rate at which data is not only generated, but interpreted, decisions made. So I think there is an opportunity for us as these technologies become introduced to not only increase the proportion of Africa's contribution to global clinical trials and research, but perhaps leapfrog places that have legacy systems and integrate AI right from the get-go as we try and develop this industry. And then lastly, on the flip end, on the downstream end, thinking about market access. So, for many of us, we see that there's oncology, there's cardiometabolic disease, etc., all over the continent. But the data sets that support that, or the data sets that support not only planning for clinical trials, but really understanding what the market is, for, say, obesity or diabetes, as more and more medical centers, hospitals, physicians group in Africa start to use EHRs, and certainly countries, governments are starting to move in that direction. Can we optimize how that data is used and available to make key decisions? So can we have unified data standards? So you can have federated data repositories where data is de-identified, anonymized. Nobody needs to know that it's Tariro's heart disease or whatever it is. But able to pool data that can help not only researchers, but also government's policy planners to know, yes, we need to buy enough antibiotics because we have this much, pneumonia or urinary tract infections, etc. So starting to use AI, large language models in federated data sets to predict the market access, but also think about placement of trials. So I think in our space, this is an exciting opportunity and an exciting time, and hopefully a time for young researchers to get involved. Biology is expensive. It's very difficult to set up labs, etc. But data science, if we can all agree to share data, I think there's opportunity for young African scientists to start to leverage AI, big data sets, technology to inform some of our key and pressing health challenges.
Thank you so much for taking such an expansive approach to addressing healthcare beyond just the technical aspects in which AI tools can help, but also legislative spaces and also kind of the diagnostics and experimental spaces that inform healthcare. Going back to the research aspect of it, how do you see, because you did touch on Africa's contributions, not just Africa as recipient of kind of healthcare solutions and having access, but also having Pan-African research ecosystems contribute to the space. And how do you see African researchers contributing to it and the importance of having such research ecosystems in healthcare in particular, where risks are kind of context informed, and the importance of kind of African research in that.
I think I missed the last bit of what you said there.
Oh, just the importance of having African research ecosystem in order to respond to the particular risks and also to make contributions to the larger ecosystem.
Great. So I think that a few things are important. I think particularly now as kind of global funding landscapes, et cetera, shift. And until our governments, sort of start to meet the Abuja Declaration requirements and invest more in research, I think this is a time for all of us to come together more and more and sort of avoid sort of the traditional siloed academic approach. This is my grant and I'm in Kenya, South Africa, Zimbabwe, et cetera. And start to think about, as those research dollars are shrinking, what do we already have? How can we better leverage what already exists? How can we better collaborate beyond silos? And I think there's often a perception that, data is very valuable and, I must save it on my computer and not share it. But data is only valuable if you build things on top of it, and if you make it accessible for more and more people to interrogate and ask questions. And sometimes the data that's valuable is not only, the experiment that went well and was successful, it's also the experiment that failed and was unsuccessful. So, this is a little utopian, but my wish is as we sort of find ourselves in this space, can we start to think in a Pan-African way? Can we develop models of sharing data that makes sense? And certainly if there's any future revenue generation, there's a number of global examples of models of sharing any downstream revenue. But I think starting to think more about, what do we have on hand? And in many cases, we have quite a lot of data on hand. It's fragmented, it's not well structured, etc. But if we start to collaborate and start to leverage, even AI, for example, AI OCR that can help read paper records and digitize them into standardized formats. If we start to collaborate more, can we start to build a resource, a shared resource that can be valuable for anybody who wants to tap into it and have downstream insights? So I'm not sure I answered your question, but that's my utopian wish for, an African ecosystem where everybody works together more effectively.
No, I think an optimistic approach is more than welcome in this space, and I appreciate you calling for more collaborative approaches and hoping that folks who are on the call can also kind of collaborate within their own, because I've seen folks introducing each other themselves and speaking to each other. So perhaps it can even be a space where these kinds of conversations can start. And I do understand that you are likely leaving a bit earlier, so if folks do have questions, please drop them in the chat now, but they're addressed now and we can forward them later. So let's move to Dr. Shiko Gitao. And I understand that there may be visual aids. Thank you so much, Shailene, for sharing that. If you could speak to how African research institutions and AI practitioners ensure that AI-driven scientific discovery is equitable, contextually relevant, and free from bias, while also addressing the infrastructure constraints, data limitations, and ethical implications. And I understand you're going to speak from your experience at Kala, but I also know that you work with many different organizations and sit on the boards that we mentioned. So over to you with the presentation.
Thank you so much for having me. I was listening in, and I feel like all the other speakers were speaking from a point of what I wish I had done in my life. So Prof. Shok was talking about Prof. Chibale's lab, the H3D. If I had not done computer science, I'd have done chemistry, and I'll be in that lab for sure. It's my favorite, it's my second favorite lab at UCT. Noting that I'm from computer science. So my favorite one is House of Platinum because that's where I went to school. But he spoke about the role of AI in drug discovery. And then the prof from Ethiopia spoke about community and grounding your research from ground up. And Tariro spoke about Pan-Africanism because that's what I speak about all the time. So I was thinking, they did a good introduction and baseline for what I want to be speaking about. And I'm going to be speaking about from our experience doing research in AI and data for the past 6 years. And I'm projecting our health team, which is currently at a conference. There's a huge digital health conference in Nairobi called the Global Digital Health Forum that's happening, and they're doing a presentation this afternoon. So I'm projecting their inner self. I'm not a medical doctor, but I always want in these examples to have them present because they are better suited than I am, because I only just talk most of the time. They do most of the work. So if you can go to the next slide. Is it moving?
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you
Awesome.
see it on your end? Okay.
Now I can see it. So I always like grounding our work around this, what we do. We call the 4 horsemen model. This is what as Kala we do. So Kala is a digital innovation lab. We are headquartered in Nairobi. Within Kala incubate an AI research lab. We have an AI research lab, a physical one with GPUs and everything, and researchers. And it's called Qubit. If you go to qbit.africa, you get to read a little bit about it. If you're in Nairobi, you want to come and run some models, we can accommodate you. And we ground our work in AI across these 5 areas: data, and I talked a lot about data and data systems, talent, building an African talent pipeline, digital infrastructure, providing compute, connectivity, and power for African AI system market, building viable solutions for African problems, and governance, ensuring that Africa is not being left behind by archaic rules and policies. So we work very closely with many governments across the continent to build forward-looking policies policies around AI and digital transformation in general. So that is our grounding, so that everything I'm speaking about is going to be around this. And then I'm going to speak about like what we call our flywheel when it comes to AI. If you go next. Yeah. So we call it the Africa AI enablement flywheel. And we, having done this many, many times over, we ended up with this. We didn't come up with this, then tried and execute it. We tried many other things that failed and ended up with this. And this is a 2025 thing. It might change next year, but this is currently what is working for us. And we realize it starts with AI awareness. Among scientists, we have an AI masterclass for scientists. So we work with, like now we have 5 fellows from different universities in Kenya who are sitting with us. They're not AI people. We have language people, we have economists, but they are trying to understand AI in their perspective. So AI awareness is extremely important. From there, we start identifying some great talent. And after that, we start doing research. We are very research driven. We want to be able to solve problems. And from after that, we provide compute and the enabling environment to be able to build. And then we build models. We have built a couple of models, and I'll talk about 2 that we have. And then we deploy to community. And community here does not mean the mass market necessarily, but the community that is going to consume your model. In this case, we're talking about medical doctors or research scientists or somebody who is going to be trying to do this. For example, in January, we are launching a specific model for lawyers. Yeah, but we'll be working with more than 100 lawyers to build this model. So we always work in this flywheel, and so far so good. It's working. Next. Now, let me jump to health and what inspires us about doing health. Health is our biggest practice, and we have a number of medical doctors who are working in this space. So this is a real-life case, and I'm going to read from my slides on my computer because I can't see them on your slides.
I'm sorry, I think it's frozen on my
stuck.
end. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to be reading from my end. When I say next, just go ahead. So we work both on language and health, and we did this study. So a lot of people send us and call us to go and evaluate their AI product because of the work that we are doing. So during a summit in Kigali earlier this year, our health team was presenting something, and they were called, "Can you come and evaluate this system?" And this is an actual screenshot. So these people said, "We speak Kiswahili." I mean, our model speaks Kiswahili and can solve for any maternal problem. And that is the AI prompt that was given. It says, "Mimi ni mama mjamzito, chanjo ya pepo punda hupatiana baada ya muda mgani?" That means I am a pregnant woman, and when do I get my tetanus jab? Yeah. And the answer from the AI bot was, you're asking about the timing of rabies, which they translated as pepo punda vaccination. If you're a Kiswahili speaker, you know this is wrong. The translation, both from a context point of view and the language point of view, is wrong, because pepo punda is tetanus, not rabies. And that is the translation that was encoded within the model that was being presented to these women. And so our biggest challenge is not only to provide context, not only to translate in terms of language, but also to provide context of service. And that is why I'm excited about the work that we do, is ensuring that women and men and young people across the continent are able to serve by medicine and health services in their language accurately in context. So going to next. So in the next slide, it shows how we've applied our flywheel in health. This is an actual thing that we've been doing. So we've done many, many projects. So for example, we are actively working with our AMREF, which is headquartered in Nairobi and the Kenya School of Nursing. And why nursing will be asking is a majority of the first caregivers in most of Africa is a nurse. in a white coat, but a nurse nonetheless, right? And they need to be empowered with this tool. So we're working with the Kenya School of Nursing and the Nursing Council and AMREF to train them. And what did that give us? A very robust health AI community. We have 200 plus people from nursing, from medics, from pharmaceuticals who we work with. And what did that help us with? And I had the questions that Terry was asking about data sets. We should not be siloed. And the only way to do that is to build trust with the people who have those data sets. And the people with these data sets are the nurses, the doctors, the practitioners, the consultants. They've been doing this work for a while. And that's what happened with us is we've been meeting them every 2 months for the last 2 years, just trying to understand them, helping them understand what AI is and the ways of working, but them helping us understand things from a health perspective. So, for example, we built Alama QA, which is an evaluation benchmark for health in Africa. So we have Alama, which is the Alama QA, which is a generic one. And by the end of December, you're going to be releasing Alama QA for HIV, which is specifically on HIV. And this came from meeting all these doctors and then giving us their pain points in using these large language models in their practices. Yeah. And it's not just asking a prompt on ChatGPT or Gemini. It is also taking pictures of your scans and your x-rays and asking it to interpret it for you. And they were getting it wrong. So our goal is, how do we build benchmarks against what is out there and feed it to the big tech? And to be honest, I'm very proud of this work because we released it in July, I believe. And so far, we've had engagements with both OpenAI and Gemini and Google around this work. So we are moving the needle when it comes to the ecosystem. But my most exciting one is we have the GPUs now. It's the data sets that this community has provided for us. Yeah. And they have basically donated data sets for us to build stuff, to learn, to build the ecosystem, the health AI ecosystem on the African continent. And because of that infrastructure that is already being provided, so saying you don't have to store anything. We have storage infrastructure. We have some compute that we can be able to do that. And we are providing AI talent from our team to be able to co-create with them the models. And what has that led us to? Two things. We have a HIV SLM, there's a small language on HIV, and a breast cancer one, which is my case study for today. And then we've deployed this back and forth with our community to test it before we deploy it to the world. Going back to what the professor from Ethiopia was talking about, is always bring the customer or the user or the practitioners on board. So there is, I want to give a case study of the breast cancer model that we have done. And I have to showcase Dr. Fred, who heads our AI in health work. He's currently being a superstar at the forum. He's amazing, and he's helped us like really decipher the AI space, especially in scientific discovery and healthcare. Not necessarily medicine, but let's call it healthcare. He's a medical doctor, has been practicing for more than 12 years. Half of it is in the AI space. So he's good at being a doctor and he's good at being an AI engineer. So when we were doing this work and meeting the doctors, we got Dr. Fatima, who is a radiologist. And she said, I've had these data sets for the last 10 years, been collecting with it. Can we do something with them? We, of course, said yes. And the next slide, which I am not going to go through because it is mostly the methodology around it, we took these slides, spliced them out. You see, we had more than 2,000 images. And we used them to understand how an African breast look like. According to them, because this was so fascinating for me because I thought all women's breasts look the same, apparently not, is our breast density as African is very, very different. Because sometimes cancer cannot be seen even in our normal MRIs, the thing, and X-rays, because the way that it's been trained has not taken care of some of the density that we carry along. So sometimes you might pass a test, but it has not been seen because of just dense. But now, saying that and having the slides showing you the progress, and they walked us through this process, and I was like, my eyes were popping out. Oh my God, I'm going for another of this test with knowledge, because for them to do like an extra layer of this, or when you go through your your annual test, is now you have knowledge that this is not happening. But what if the model that is training the machine is not the correct one? So this model we have trained, it's up there. The SLM is out there. If you want access to it and play around with it, I can ask Dr. Fred to give you access to it. But it was very telling on how AI can basically decipher a field that everybody feels that has been well studied. For me, breast cancer is one of those fields that has been well studied. But when we came to this, even the people who were presenting to, they said, okay, this is quite interesting. And we used AI. We didn't just build a model. We use AI to help us build the models, and that's the AI for building scientific discovery. That's what I loved about it, because what the team said, we know this has been done before. Let's do the best understanding using current understanding, and then take it and bring our own understanding of this space from a physician, local culture point of view. And that's what I love this. And we did this quite fast, to be honest. I was surprised by how fast we did it, because we combined our knowledge. We didn't have to code everything. AI helped us build everything. And then we have like a really amazing model that is out there for somebody to be able to use. And hopefully we can be able to save a few millions of lives of women, because we took the risk of just doing it and also getting these doctors to do it. But the one that I was fully involved in is the next slide. I'm just 2 slides away. I'm 2 slides away. This is the last one.
Okay. Yeah. We're just 2 minutes away, but okay.
Yes. So during COVID, our team was working on AI modeling for Kenya. And we were doing this every week. We were producing all dashboards and modeling around this. But we were hit with a snag, because there's going to be another next slide number 10, if you are. It's not showing on my site now. My computer has, okay, there. Is how do we stop the next COVID-19 pandemic using AI surveillance? Our biggest challenge was finding those outputs. So in Kenya, there's a tool called Rumor, the Rumor tool. And it is supposed to collect rumors or whispers around, or there's this, people have a rash in this community, or people are coughing blood in this community. But how do you quickly collect this data? So one of the key things that the team is working on is, how do you build a rumor tool using AI? Yeah. Or using, one of the key things that we did during COVID was looking at past blood collections and seeing if there was indeed COVID before COVID was officially announced. How do you start doing it proactively using AI, such that you're able to send this report before it becomes an actual pandemic? So those are the 4 things that we're trying to work on right now. But what I wanted to mention, going back to Charero, is in the past 4 weeks, we've received a large data sets on AMR. And they're saying, we know that AMR is a problem. We don't know what to do with this data. You guys, you are the AI people, go figure it out. And that is the kind of collaboration I'll call to the community. And as I love Tarero's call to action, is who is out there who is able to work on these things, combine efforts. We can provide compute, you can provide some of these data sets. Who else has data sets out there that can be combined to build an African-wide AMR surveillance tool? Because if, yes, you can build one for Kenya, we have some data sets from Uganda, but who else is out there who can be able to use the data sets that are there to provide scientists with a solution? Because sometimes the scientists want a solution, they might not have the technical capacity or the infrastructure capacity. It's bringing ourselves together to be able to do this. And we're offering to be able to be part of that community. Thank you very much. I am done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your presentation. And I believe that there would be folks who would want access to it. And I know the time that we had did not do justice all the work that you do. Especially considering that there are folks on the panel and in the chat who may be trying to work on similar kinds of challenges, in particular in health. If you are able to give us the go-ahead to share the slides, that would be very helpful. I do not see Professor Wafula in the participants list. If they could interrupt me if they're in the room with us. Professor Wafula, are you here? Okay, I don't think that they are, so I think we can go to wrap up. I can give each panelist kind of 1 to 2 minutes to give their kind of overall insights on the potentials that they see of AI in tackling challenges through scientific means, and kind of any kinds of projects or kind projects that you want to highlight or ways that folks can get in touch with you. So, Jonathan, we can go back to you. And if you want to highlight a couple of things that you are working on and areas where you might see folks collaborating.
Sure. Thanks very much. I mean, I think it's been a really, really interesting set of discussions already, and I think I just want to highlight something which has already been said, but I think people often compare themselves, universities, institutions compare themselves with some of the really, really big players in the US and in China, and there's a feeling there, we don't have the computer power, we don't have this, that, and the other. But I think what there is in Africa is this incredible network of people. And as Shiko says, she has this data set, and there are the people there working on this, and she's built this community. And this is something that we have to embrace as a real strength and do AI differently to the way it's being done in so much of the rest of the world. We need to be sharing our data sets. We need to be sharing expertise. We need to be sharing our experiences as much as possible. Travel in Africa isn't easy, but there are ways to get around this. And technologies like federated learning, there are lots of ways around the sort of institutional issues that might complicate matters. But it takes a set of people like the other panelists here today who are really making this change. And so yeah, I think my call to the rest of the audience here is if you have problems that you want to work on, great if you want to work on them alone, even better if you can bring other people in and share your experiences, share the data, share the learnings. I think that would be my key takeaway.
Thanks so much for the call to action, Fizzle.
Interesting discussion. I enjoyed every bit of it. I will continue with what Jonathan was saying, and I base it on one of the questions that was asked by the audience members. Like that, the question was like, most of the models that are currently being used, especially LLMs, are like for languages not spoken by the local people, and how can we bring that to like local context. And in our discussion, that one thing that came into being is that there are efforts that we know of, like individual efforts across the country that are trying to build models for one language, for another language. And so like bringing this together and communicating and like knowing like who is working on what, it like will help reduce like repeated efforts, and also like help us collaborate to build one solution that could help the community. And I think that's my highlight.
Thank you so much. Shiko, over to you. A 1-minute recap or call to action.
So my call to action is what Prof. Shock has said, is we need to collaborate more. And I know we are, Prof. Shock is coming to spend time in our lab. He promised already. And that means that we get to collaborate very closely with him and his students, and he gets to collaborate closely with our researchers. We'd love to, Fitsuma, if you have any researchers and collaborate on this, because we need to solve for Africa. And as Prof. Shock has said, yes, sometimes we look at China labs and sometimes we look at the US labs. They only work because people work together. Yeah. So my call to action is offer what you can. And I say if you come to Nairobi, we have a proper AI research lab, great connectivity, great compute, and great working space. It's quite beautiful, actually. If you go to Qubit, I hope the pictures are already up there. And great community of people who are really passionate about solving problems for Africa. So yeah, we welcome you that. And the call to action is offer what you have for the betterment of Africa. Yeah.
I can see the question about how the coffee is. To be honest, I would advocate for, I'm biased, Ethiopian coffee will likely carry you through, but we're neighbors. So Kenyan tea is also, it can hold its own. But thank you all so very much for your contributions, and those of you who waited the extra 5 minutes to get folks' final thoughts. It's really great to see the call to action in practice as folks are chatting about collaborating while advocating for it. So please feel free to exchange contacts, to share resources after this call. Please have this call be kind of a starting point and not one that a conversation that ends here. And this is going to be our last webinar of the series we have been doing for 2025. And thank you all for attending, especially those who have attended the previous sessions as well. And we look forward to the webinars we're going to be hosting in the new year, which are going to be focusing more on agentic AI, which is an emerging kind of area of debate. And we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.